Does George W. Bush deserve responsibility for the failures that led to September 11th? The independent commission that the president so reluctantly approved in late 2002 is likely to provide complex and nuanced answers to that question. Perhaps the commission will explain why members of the bin Laden family were spirited out of the United States on orders from the White House before they could be questioned by the FBI. Perhaps the commission will explore why FBI terror expert John O'Neill, who died in the World Trade Center conflagration, believed that the Bush administration was soft on Saudi cooperation with al-Qaeda. What is clear already from the public record is that the Bush administration received ample warning from Clinton's national security officials and from CIA Director George Tenet, a Clinton holdover, that al-Qaeda posed the most significant immediate threat to American security. Departing National Security Advisor Sandy Berger and the National Security Council's counterterrorism chief, Richard Clarke, who was held over by Bush, gave Condoleezza Rice a series of urgent briefings on terrorism during the presidential transition in January 2001. You're going to spend more time during your 4 years on terrorism generally, and al-Qaeda specifically, than any issue, Berger told his successor. Clarke delivered similar emphatic briefings to Vice President Cheney and to Stephen Hadley, Rice's deputy. But the supposedly competent national security managers in the new administration, including Rice, Cheney, and Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld, were too preoccupied with other matters, such as national missile defense, to pay heed to the most serious threat since the end of the Cold War. The failure of Bush's national security team to recognize the threat of al-Qaeda, even after they were clearly warned, will rank among the most serious mistakes ever made by U.S. government officials. They had billed themselves as the grown-ups, condescending to the Democrats they replaced and asserting that their experience would return steady guidance to American policy. Instead, these veterans of previous Republican administrations fumbled and fooled around with ancillary issues while an elusive new enemy prepared to strike. They weren't prepared. They had no plan. They hadn't seen what was coming. They had ignored the warnings. Their judgment was as diluted as their self-image. Long before Bush acquiesced to the independent commission, hints of that incompetence and arrogance emerged in the media, despite the administration's effort to conceal its mistakes. On August 6, 2001, the CIA had warned the president and other top officials of an active plot by al-Qaeda operatives to seize civilian aircraft. During the same period, FBI special agents in Phoenix and Minnesota had warned their own agency of activity by suspected al-Qaeda operatives at U.S. flight schools. The FBI was essentially leaderless during that time because Free had resigned. Nobody at the FBI, the CIA, the National Security Council, or any other government intelligence agency managed to connect those warnings until after the disaster. The credibility of the White House in all these matters is low. That is why many of the events of 2001 must be re-examined for additional evidence of what the Bush administration knew or should have known. One such event is the International Economic Summit in Genoa, Italy in late July 2001. In the weeks preceding the G8 meeting, the Russian federal police warned about an al-Qaeda plot to assassinate President Bush, the threat was considered sufficiently serious to keep the president away from the luxury cruise ship that housed his fellow heads of state. Almost simultaneously, on July 26, 2001, Attorney General John Ashcroft abruptly stopped flying on commercial aircraft, reportedly due to a threat assessment by the FBI. The White House now claims that this had nothing to do with al-Qaeda and was related to concerns about a possible attempt against the Attorney General's life. At the time, however, CBS News reported, quote, "A senior official at the CIA said he was unaware of specific threats against any cabinet member," unquote. Perhaps it is a sign of paranoia to ascribe grave meaning to any of those incidents. It is also apparent, however, that warnings and portents were flying around the globe in the months before September 11. Until a plausible verdict from the independent commission arrives, the nation's conservatives should forget about blaming Bill Clinton and the Democrats. Their own record on terrorism stands up poorly by comparison.
Goodbye.